Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Amateur Hour Sports for today's Raptors Happy Hour live stream. We are here for the Wednesday Happy Hour, the midweek Happy Hour, to help get us through the rest of the week. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming through, hanging out with me here today. We got a pretty good show lined up for all of you. We're going to talk, obviously, a lot of Raptors. We're going to talk about some of the comments that were made after the Raptors' recent loss to the San Antonio Spurs, with another pretty lackluster display overall by the team, which in particular, the first quarter was very poor. We're a little loud. First quarter was very poor by the Raptors. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, where things have been going wrong, and talking about Darko Rajakovic, his role as head coach, how he's been doing with the team, how he's been doing this season, how he's been doing for the 2 seasons leading up to this season, and a whole host of other things along the way with those two kind of main features of the stream. We're also going to talk a little Blue Jays, because the Toronto Blue Jays, Game 5 tonight. Oh, man. This is a big one. What a win yesterday, but we're going to talk a little bit of Blue Jays as well to lead off the show. But how's everyone doing? Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with me tonight. Good news. I will be live for you guys a little bit later on today as well for a Raptors versus Rockets live stream. This will not be a dual live stream because, in truth, I actually do have, I told you guys, Wednesdays I can't stream at the moment. However, I play soccer Wednesdays. It's so late this time that I'm actually able to come through and do the, pretty much, I think I should be fine to do the entire game. It's lagging. Looks clean on my end. Apologize if it's lagging. Hopefully that sorts out, but connection seems good on my end, and I'm looking at the stream right now. It seems fine there as well. So apologize for that, but we'll power through. Hopefully everything kind of works itself out from a connection standpoint. But again, on the Blue Jays, so or on the stream, I'm going to be streaming live tonight for the Raptors against the Rockets, and again, it should line up where I can end the stream pretty much perfectly with when I have to leave to go to my game. So that's the good news. We're going to have a watch along tonight, but no Blue Jays portion of the watch along. Monday, we did the dual watch along. We had the Raptors at 8 p.m. We had the Blue Jays at 8 p.m. And I thought to myself, all right, the Jays probably go to like 11:15 to go a little bit past the Raptors game. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Big shout out, big shout out to the people who stuck with me and we're watching that live stream right up into the bitter end. I was live on Monday for, I guess, Tuesday as well, because it spilled way past midnight. I was live for 7 hours. For 7 hours. I started that stream at 6:45 or so, and that stream ended at 2:45 in the morning. I'm still feeling the effects of the lack of sleep I got that night, but big shout outs to the people who are hanging out in the chat for that one. Just an absolutely devastating loss in the end. The Blue Jays had loads of opportunities and they didn't cash in. I mean, granted, the Dodgers did it as well, but unfortunate that it's sports. Someone has to lose, and in that case, it was the Blue Jays off the Freddie Freeman walk-off. And I don't know how that team, I don't know how the Blue Jays rallied to put up a massive Game 4 performance and reclaim home field advantage. The Blue Jays heading into Game 5 of the World Series have home field advantage. That is massive. They could lose today. This is like the freebie. Now, I want them to win today. This is the freebie, though. You can lose and you still have home field advantage. So it's a little bit of a free hit. Less of a free hit, knowing that Yoshinobu Yamamoto is the scheduled Game 6 starter, and he absolutely shut us down in Game 2. So that's obviously something to consider as well. But man, oh man, there is a very large opportunity for the Blue Jays tonight. I'll have it on, so we'll have a little bit of a dual watch along. About an hour of Blue Jays play while I'm live doing the Raptors game, so it should be fun tonight. But what a great job of the Jays, continuing to just put the ball in play, continuing to force the hand of the Dodgers, creating themselves opportunities, and they were clinical, absolutely clinical with their opportunities in yesterday's Game 4. That was great to see. Game 5, just got to do more of the same. You got to the pitcher in Game 1. You got him again in Game 5. Who is it? Snell? Is that his name? Blake Snell? Yeah. You got to him in game 1. Just keep getting barrel on the ball, putting it in play, and take your opportunities when they arise. I'm excited. I mean, treasure these moments. You don't often get a championship series in Toronto. We've had one. This is the second one in the last 32 years. Treasure these moments. They are big and they are enjoyable. Let's hope for a Game 5 win tonight. Huge. But anyways, that's enough on the Jays. I can't believe I was live. I can't believe I was live for 7 hours the other day. By far the longest stream in the history of this channel. Don't say I don't do stuff for you guys. Don't say I don't work hard either. All right. So yeah, on the topic of the Raptors, again, like I'm going to be covering today, the slow start is going to cover Darko Rajakovic's role with the team as well. And this should wrap up about an hour into the stream, and then 15 minutes after that, I'll be live for the watch party. So I'll scarf down dinner in the meantime. But anyway, let's say what's up to the people in the chat. What's going on too? Nate D, thank you for joining. Chicken fodder. Raptors record under Darko is chicken fodder. Chicken shit. Not great. In 2 and a bit seasons, Darko Rajakovic has amassed 56 wins. 56 wins in 168 games. Whew. 56 divided by 168. Oh, it's 33%. That's exactly 33. Win percentage is 0.333, if my math is correct. Let me double check my math. Yeah. And if my memory is correct, 25 wins, 30 wins, and 1 win. Yeah, I think a perfect 33%. A third of the games the Raptors win in their Darko. That's not too good. That really is not too good. We have Nancy H joining us, Q-Man joining us, K Cedar joining us, The Flash B6857 as well. Thank you, everyone. You know, I was thinking after the Raptors game, because I see a comment here from The Flash, and we also have T-Pop and Daddies. What a name. Thank you for joining. The Flash talks about Colin Murray Boyles here. He says, Colin Murray Boyles, you can hear us. Please save us. Please save us from these 6'11 people. I'm asking you to save us. He was very good against the Spurs. He was a very rare bright spot. Really nice fit, seems, with the starters as well. Kind of you take out Pearl and put Murray Boyles in. I'm not saying to start. I'm just saying he's a good fit in that sort of lineup. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about Colin Murray Boyles, and I was considering doing like some sort of post-game show. But then the Blue Jays game went 4 hours past what I thought it would go, so I wasn't really able to do that. A lot of plans that were supposed to be in motion did not happen because the Blue Jays lost in at 2:45 a.m. Eastern time. But anyways, again, like I said, enough on the Blue Jays. T-Poppin' Daddy says, the Raptors the toughest opening schedule. I thought the record would not be good through the first 15 games. It's not as much like, you know, I can accept some losses to some of these tougher teams. I mean, Milwaukee, that's going to be a team that's going to be like in similar range to you in the standings, you hope. So that's definitely a winnable game. Dallas Mavericks, the Raptors are favored on the road against the Dallas Mavericks, so it's a bit of a showcase of the supposed talent levels there. They're supposedly a little bit more talented than the Dallas Mavericks based on that. So that was a very disappointing game. The way they had not just that they lose, it's how bad they're playing at times and how poorly they played, especially in the first quarter. But for a lot of the game against the San Antonio Spurs, that's kind of the bigger problem for me. It's not about the results; it's about the process. Raptors haven't looked good in some of these losses for sure. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second here. Casey says the Raptors think it's still the late 2010s. You can't run undersized players anymore. You need size. It's going back to old school bar where you have having a legit big matters. I mean, Raptors have a legit big. The issue is he's hurt and he's not playing well. He's not playing well. It's undersized. He's playing terribly. Jakob Pearl out the gate to start the season. But part of the issue is that's it. That's it for your size. If it's not Pearl, it's nobody. They don't have any other form of size on this team, and they're playing a humongous team tonight. Like the Houston Rockets have a monster lineup. Eamon Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith, Alperen Sengun, and Steven Adams. It is a humongous team they're playing against tonight. So it should be another really difficult one where it's going to be really tough for the Raptors to score on that team. They've played some freakish bigs lately, but like they're just playing a massive team. It's going to be very tough today. Very tough. And they're just a really good team as well. Kima says, what do you think about putting Grady at the point, letting Quick come off the bench? Listen, I know Quick has been playing poorly. That is not going to solve things. No, Grady at the point. I mean, if you really want to start Grady Dick ahead of Quickly, like then Grady Dick would not be playing at point guard. You'd have Scotty Barnes playing that role. I don't think Quickly's moving to the bench. That is a drastic decision to make with your $32.5 million point guard. If his play continues like this, then maybe some decision has to be made. We're not going to make that decision right now. Emmanuel Quickly is going to continue to start. In fact, Grady Dick, his role is within question. I've been saying it for a few weeks now, and there was a big showcase of that against the Spurs. Grady Dick played 8 minutes against the Spurs, and I think that's because he played garbage time as well. I think he played 5 minutes, of meaningful basketball in that game. So a lack of trust in Grady Dick as well at the moment. Now, I get his defense is bad. So are a lot of other people's on the team. So I don't think it was necessarily the right call to throw him in the doghouse for that game, because I think a lot of other people were poor as well. But they're really cracking down on his defensive play being subpar for the Raptors, incredibly subpar for the Raptors. Casey says CMB is at small forward. At max power forward, use him incorrectly, you'll ruin his development. I wouldn't say at max he's a power forward. I would say power forward is his position, and he can absolutely play center. He can absolutely play as a small ball 5. So I would not at all agree with him being supposedly a max power forward. He can definitely play center, and part of the reason I think they liked him as well. I'm a fun guy, says I'm about to be heavily back on the fire Darko train very, very soon. Well, I've kind of been there since like 15, 20 games into his Raptors tenure. I mean, even like 10 games, I was like, he might actually be a really bad coach. And then 2 years later, yeah, I think I might have been right. I mean, I don't think you should fire him this early into a season. Game 20 is where that would be like my point where I'm like, if we're at game 20 and it's not better, then I'd be like, yeah, he's obviously not a good coach still. Anyways, I'm not going to do it yet, but I will talk a lot about Darko Rajakovic a little bit later on in the stream. Tom Graham joining us says, hey, good morning from Australia. Good morning to you. Currently on work. I'm so keen to watch some hoops and Jays for the next week and a bit. Well, the Jays could be done Friday. Where the World Series really just passes you by. It goes and passes you, but it goes quick. These games come thick and fast. It's not like the NBA Finals. It's like 2 weeks. You're kind of like G'd up for every game. It comes at you fast. Like this has been a remarkable Blue Jays run. And I'm trying to cherish it, but it just feels like it's going really fast and getting away from us quickly. So I'm going to be really sad when it's done. Some really good memories out of it, and hopefully the biggest memory of all. But thanks for joining us, Tom. Hopefully you do get some enjoyment out of the content today. Andre Silva says, look at the schedule. Raptors can potentially stay at 1 win for a while. I'll talk about this guy. I have the tab open of the schedule, so it's in my notes to discuss today as well. Darko is a good development coach. I actually wanted the Spain world team head coach. I believe he's the best coach now. Who's the Spain coach? I wanted Jordi Fernandez pretty bad, and that didn't materialize. Who is the Spain head coach right now? He's done a great job. It's Scariolo. Right. I should have remembered that. Scariolo's former Raptors assistant. He was a name on my list as well when they were in the job search. I didn't think Darko was a bad hire necessarily. He wasn't the first on my list when they hired him. I saw the potential. I saw what they were looking at. It just hasn't really worked out yet, and signs are not pointing towards it ever doing so. And the notion that he's a good development coach, I ask for proof of his developmental prowess. The Raptors are no better than when he took over, and players are like really no better than when he took over either. Like the players, other than like some of the young players where you could say the really young players, would they have just gotten better under anybody? Like, I don't want to be too picky here, but you could definitely make a case. Guys like Jamal Shed might have just been fine at working on his game without, no matter who the coach was. But yeah, if like your reason for being hired as development coach, that's like what you do, I'm pretty disappointed with the lack of that having happened in like 2.5 years. Anyways, coach is available right now. I mean, well, Scariolo. But yeah, not a huge crop like maybe like a Mike Budenholzer. Jerry Stackhouse was a name I was pretty interested in a couple years ago. I think I've kind of soured on Jerry Stackhouse over the last couple years, so I may push back on that a little bit now. But there's options. There's options out there, but I don't think a drastic decision needs to be made yet. Okay, on the topic of Darko, let's talk about some stuff that he was saying after the loss to the San Antonio Spurs. And the comments that like a few people were making after that San Antonio Spurs game in particular, because I found it a little bit of it quite interesting. And I kind of wanted to dig a little bit further in on this topic because there's I mean, every game most games we're kind of seeing a trend right now. And I think we even saw this trend come into play for the team last season. Darko Rajakovic talked about it after the game. RJ Barrett talked about it after the game. And there is a pretty large source of where problems are coming from right now. And it's being labeled a lot as the Raptors are starting slow. But to me, it feels like more of an effort thing that's being disguised as a quote-unquote slow start. I said RJ Barrett talked about it, Darko Rajakovic talked about it, and there's parts I agree with, and there's parts that I really disagree with when it comes to these two. So, like Darko Rajakovic spoke about it. I have an article up here from M Sports written by Charlotte Baker, and Darko talks about where things kind of went wrong here, and blames a lot of that problematic game against the Spurs on a slow start. Says it was not just the second half; it was pretty much 3.5 quarters where he thinks the Raptors played well for 3.5 quarters. It was the first 5 minutes where they really let themselves go. He says in the first 5 minutes, they scored 20 points, and they scored 41 in the first quarter. For whatever reason, we did not come with the intensity and attention to detail you need when you play on the road against a very talented team. We did not do a good job with that part after. We did not do a good job with that part after that. So, first of all, a little bit confusing to me when he says we did not come in with the intensity and attention to detail that you need. You're the coach. That's kind of your job. So to say for whatever reason we did not come in with the intensity and detail you need. That's kind of your job to have that attention, like to bring that attention to detail and to get your team kind of energized. Now, like, can the team be flat? Can a team be under energized for a game and that's kind of beyond the coach's reach? Okay, sure, but maybe shoulder that a little bit more than he did there, in my opinion. And second of all, I watched. Granted, I was dual screening with the Blue Jays, but I watched that entire game up to like garbage time. There were a lot more poor. There was a lot of poor basketball by the Raptors. Was it better than the first 5-6 minutes? Sure, but the first quarter as a whole wasn't good, and the rest of the game wasn't that great either. Other than some mini runs the Raptors went on to keep the game close. The Spurs were pretty casual for the duration of the game. So to say that the first 5 minutes hurt us, and yes, it did, but you also still gave up 41 points as a whole in the first quarter, and it still wasn't that good for the rest of the game. So let's not just blame it solely on the slow start for me. RJ Barrett also talked about this supposed slow start, and there's actually a video we have to show for this one. This comes from the channel Jump View, and let's listen into what RJ Barrett had to say. Well, it's not playing. Hang on. Should work now.
Tired of getting scored on, I guess. Just trying to really figure it out. I mean, of course, it's really our, first couple games together, but there's I feel like we can, definitely speak for myself, give a little bit more effort of being ready. I think, like.
So at least he's kind of acknowledging the effort thing that I was acknowledging. It feels the effort wasn't quite there. And yes, that leads to a slow start, and that's a problem, but it feels like a very large effort thing, even kind of throughout the entire game. And I'll get into that a little more in just a sec, not just the start of the game.
Yesterday, we started off not too bad, but it's kind of been like, I'll say half the games we started good, half the games we didn't. So just trying to make sure that we can have a focus and intensity from the beginning. Because, outside of that first quarter, it was a pretty even game. I think we won some of those quarters, actually.
It was more even, but still felt like the Spurs were in control and didn't really need to kick it into extremely high gear. They felt pretty comfortable in that game from my perspective.
After that, so we played a pretty good game outside the first quarter, but, as you can see in this league, like, that one quarter could get you beat.
All right, so interesting comments there from RJ. I do like the acknowledgement of the effort, maybe not quite being there from the team's standpoint, especially going into the games. I do think the coach needs to shoulder quite a bit of that. But I have felt for pretty much like the entire time Darko Rajakovic has been head coach for the Raptors, there's been a lot of these supposed slow starts. And a lot of the times, sure, you can blame effort, but a lot of times it just feels like they're just underprepared for the team they are playing against. And they are underprepared for the style of defense they want to play. Like, they spent the entire summer kind of hyping up their defense, hyping up their demeanor and how things were going to change this season. And it's cool that they were doing that, and I really did buy into that. I've even talked about it in a stream probably like less than a week ago. I was talking about this, but you have to show it on the floor as well. Like in that first quarter, throughout the game, but particularly in that first quarter, I agree that was the worst of it. The amount of times the Spurs were just kind of casually getting to the rim, getting past defenders. The Raptors were kind of pressing a little bit higher. They've upped their where they're picking up a little bit higher this season compared to last season. They're getting blown by sometimes a little bit too easily. Then the help defense is late to get there. Like, I remember the Raptors made a bucket with like 6 seconds left in the first quarter. Hopefully that was kind of sent them into the break with a little bit of momentum. And then in the 6 seconds the Spurs had to get a point at the other end, Dylan Harper basically walked to the rim with very little resistance. There was a defender there. I forget who it was, but it just felt like so many times there was a definitive lack of resistance on the defensive end. So it just felt like they were very underprepared in what their roles were on rotations, because the Raptors were giving up a lot of open threes, and what their roles were as far as help defenses. And again, part of that's on coaching. Like, it just feels like the Raptors weren't quite prepared for this. Other examples I've seen in previous seasons, like there's one game, I think it was even Darko's first season, but I just will never forget this game because it was just such a stupid game plan going into it. It was against the Phoenix Suns when they had like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and the Raptors were sending help a lot on Kevin Durant. Yeah, that's Kevin Durant, sure. Send doubles his way. But they kept doubling off of Grayson Allen, one of the premier shooters, and he had an amazing season that year shooting threes. They kept doubling off Grayson Allen, which would then leave like the best shooter in the league at the time, percentage-wise, I think he was, wide open. And I think he had something like, it sounds crazy, but I feel like he had something crazy, like 6 to 8 threes in the first quarter. And it's just one of those cases where it's like, how could you possibly come to the conclusion as a coach that this is going to be the strategy you're going to employ? And then when it's obviously really dumb and they're killing you every possession, how can you not adjust to what is going wrong quicker? So again, it just feels like there's a consistent trend where they're underprepared for these games, and then they come out flat, they have a poor start, and then they don't adjust to things quickly enough. So that's what I don't like. I agree, like, part of it is effort, part of it is on coaching, but also part of it, I continue to say, is on effort. Guys missing rotations, that's a lot of an effort thing. Guys not being quick enough on their help defense, that is an effort thing. And even on like the offensive side of the ball when it comes to effort, like Barnes is so He's been quite good to start the season offensively, but this was one of his poor games on offense. And it's things like this. Scottie Barnes takes 7 shots against the Spurs. I remember his first 6. I don't remember the 7th field goal attempt, but I remember the first 6 field goal attempts. His first 6 field goal attempts. Actually, let's even do his first 5 field goal attempts. Were 3 3-pointers, which he made 2. So he actually took a 4th 3-pointer. That was his 7th shot. So he took 4 threes in this game, made 2, which is great. He took 2 contested mid-range jumpers. 2 contested mid-range jumpers. That's 6 field goal attempts on jump shots. He took 1 singular shot at the rim for the entire game. You know what he did on that? He got an and 1 and missed a free throw, but he got an and 1. How are you this good at basketball? You're Scottie Barnes. You are this good at basketball. How are you such an important figure to the team and only taking 7 shots, only drawing 1 shooting foul, and only taking 1 shot at the rim? I know we're playing Victor Wembanyama. I know that's clogging up a lot of the paint. But for the entire game, R.J. Barrett was putting in a ton of effort on offense to get to the rim, to get higher percentage shots, and he had a great game. It was one of the reasons why we were even within a sniff of this team, losing by 18 points. So you see, players are capable of finding those lanes and making things happen. R.J. Barrett proved it in that game. It's just a very inconsistent level of effort overall for the Raptors, where sometimes it's good, and when it's good, sometimes it's really good, and then sometimes it's bad, and when it's bad, sometimes it is very bad. So there are my qualms with a lot of proceedings for the Raptors at the moment. All right, let's dive into Darko Rajakovic, because a lot of the talk on social media and a lot of the talk in the chat today has been about Darko Rajakovic. And the reason is people are really starting to lose faith in Darko Rajakovic as head coach. So are they right? Is it time to move on from Darko Rajakovic? I'll preface this by saying once again, for anybody that's maybe just joining us here, that I have not been a Darko Rajakovic fan for a long time. About 20 games in, I know this is quick, but about 20 games into his first season as Raptors head coach, which is just under 2 years ago, I really felt like he did not know what he was doing for even just that small sample. He was underutilizing the Raptors, who had a lot of talent time. Like, they had Pascal Siakam, they had OG Anunoby. Like, there was talent there, and it felt like he was being extremely underutilized on offense. And I think the bigger thing that was worrying was how bad the defense was. Like, at the time, the Raptors had a starting 5 of Dennis Schroeder, OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, and Jakob Poeltl was already there. Like, that's a team that, I always go back to this, that's a team that should have been accidentally a top 10 defense. Like, there was so many good defensive pieces there. How could that team not be at least an above average defense? So it was always peculiar to me how you could have that level of talent on both ends of the floor and still put the team in a position where they sold off OG and Siakam and had to tank. That was always, out the gate, it was a very worrying sign for me. So I've been very anti-Darko Rajakovic as a head coach for a while now. And at this point in the season, look, we're 4 games into the time that we're doing this stream right now. So I'm not going to say 4 games into a new season, that's the time to fire a guy. But still, a lot of the issues that have soured me on Darko Rajakovic as a head coach all this time are still present. We talked about this earlier on in the stream, that it feels like the Raptors come into way too many games underprepared. They come into these games without a real concise plan of what they want to do. There's a little bit more intent this season that they want to be a defensive first team. They want to outwork other teams, but they're also not doing that. That was the whole talk leading up to the season, this defensive first approach, the effort they're going to put in. They aren't doing that. They sold us this sort of promise, and they aren't doing that. And that can change. We're 5 minutes into the season, 4 games into the season. That can change, but it didn't change every other season. It started poorly in his first year and didn't change. It started poorly in his second year and didn't change until maybe near the end of the season, when they were playing teams that were tanking even more aggressively than they were. The defense was great to end off last season, And we kind of thought some of that would spill in. We were, cautiously optimistic, knowing that it was against some bad teams, but it hasn't been good for the Raptors to start the season. It's very unorganized all over the place. So that's definitely a worry for me from a head coaching perspective, that we're still getting these things wrong, and it still doesn't feel like we're making progress in the correct direction. He has 56 wins in 168 games as Raptors head coach. That is exactly 33.3% win percentage. That's not very good. And there's tank in there, but that's still not very good. And if the Raptors were playing better, they wouldn't have had to tank because they would have been in better positions. So the Raptors hired him as a developmental type of guy. Like, that was kind of, we're heading into a rebuild, and you want this guy to help restore morale to the team. You want this guy to start developing this very young core that we have in place. And that was like a lot of the selling point. It was his ability to develop players, his ability to run a half-court offense. The half-court offense, granted, the ingredients here are not one that like really any chef could whip up a fantastic 5-star meal. It's a pretty clunky offense, but we haven't seen really any strides for the offense from a half-court perspective. And development-wise, what are the development stories that we have with the Raptors with Darko Rajakovic as head coach? Emmanuel quickly has gotten worse since he's arrived with the team. Part of that's on him, and you could say part of that's on coaching. RJ Barrett has gotten better, but is that just a different role with the team? Or is that Darko getting more out of him? Maybe a mixture of both, and maybe we can give a bit of credit there. But Grady Dick still hasn't improved on defense and played 5 meaningful minutes against the Spurs the other day. Troy Walter can barely get any play time. Jonathan Mobo is end of rotation and is pretty much unplayable. Jamal Shed is one of the only bright spots of players who has developed. But again, are we going to attribute this to Darko Rajakovic, or is this just a young player who was just bound to get better because they were working on their own game? We'll give him some credit there because I don't want to be completely unfair. But for a person whose claim to the job was half-court offense and development and morale, for sure, and that's been very good. I'll always give respect for that. 2 of those 3 things have not really shown up at all for the Raptors. The morale stuff's great, and I gave a lot of respect that over these a little bit over 2 years, no matter what their record is, the players have always been up for the games. They've always had this strong desire to go out and win. They've always seemed like they really get on with Darko. They really appreciate him. That's been great, but I don't see really a lot of evidence of developmental strides, and I see next to no evidence of a half-court offense, a sustainable half-court offense being implemented here. That was a big issue with the Nick Nurse era, and it just hasn't really gotten better. So lots of games left in this season, lots more games to kind of figure this out. But like I said, we said this last season, we said this season before, and they didn't really figure it out. So time has to be running out, and if things continue like this, I don't see how he keeps his employment beyond this season. Yeah, crazy. Cadillacs in the chat says that OG was poached by the Knicks. He was never saying no matter how much we paid him, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible OG walks for nothing, and that's part of the reason why the Raptors make the decision to trade him for what they did. So I think that's fair, but there was still a talented, while OG was there was a talented roster that wasn't playing up to standards. And if the roster was, then Raptors might have been more keen on keeping. You might have been more keen on staying. But I'll give that OG might have left, so they had to get what they could out of him. And maybe you could say the same for Siak. But while they were here, things were not going really well. Infamous says Dark was following the mandated upper management. It clearly stated at the end of last. It was clearly stated at the end of last season. The force to tank stuff is I think a really bad argument for Darko Rajakovic as a head coach, because if the Raptors were in a better position at the time, close to the trade deadlines, they wouldn't have tanked. They tanked because their record was bad and management decided that the best course of action for the rest of the season was to maximize the draft pick. If the Raptors were in a better position at the times, those times near the trade deadlines, they wouldn't have they wouldn't have gone for the tank. They would have gone for the playoffs. The reason they felt the best course of action for the team was to tank was because they weren't playing well. And I think a big reason why they weren't playing well has consistently been the coach. So I think that's just like a cop-out answer that people have been trying to use. I don't really see why there's really much defense for him at this point. It was 2 seasons of very poor play and very poor records. And this season, it started poorly. Look, if he turns it around, then I'm happy to give him the full season. I'm happy to keep him as a coach. He's a likable person. Evidently, the players really like him. But also, at a certain point, you need to win basketball games. That is your job. And this season, the Raptors are trying to win basketball games. So that they can start doing that, and everything's fine. But if they don't, like I said, I say it's about everyone. We're at a season, we're at a point where there's no excuses for really anybody. And there's definitely no more excuses for Darko. Win games, or it's time to move into a different direction. Gotta win games. Like plain and simple. You have to be able to win games as a coach, and he's not doing that. So no matter how likable he is for the players, you gotta be able to win games as well. I give him credit. If he was a bad coach, the team would have quit on him last year. I said I give him credit. The team hasn't quit. The team has always maintained the high levels, but just because the team hasn't quit on a coach doesn't mean that the on-court product isn't bad, and they're unorganized, and the defensive schemes are not working, and they still have not been able to manufacture any consistent half-court offense. Those are big things. So the fact that everyone's happy doesn't save his position anymore. Maybe it did in year 1 and 2, but it's not going to do it. That is absolutely not going to fly in year 3 for me. That's no longer the saving grace for him. They should have drafted a big man from Duke when they had the chance. Colin Malawach. Colin Murray-Boyles looks pretty good. Malawach has looked fine. I think from what I've seen, Malawach has looked fine for the Suns, but Colin Murray-Boyles looks good as well. I don't think Colin Malawach would have. I think he would have helped some things for sure. Having a backup rim protector, but also like Colin Murray-Boyles playing well has helped out the team and was a very big bright spot against the Spurs. That was just one game, and he had 0 points in his other game. But like we're not going to talk about how it was a mistake to draft one guy or another 4 games into their NBA careers. Malawach looks good, but Colin Murray-Boyles has also looked good. He looked good in preseason. He looked good in some spots in summer league. So I'm not going to. I think the jury should still be out on that one for now. And I think Colin Murray-Boyles should start tonight. I agree. Fit wise would have absolutely made sense to go Malawach. But we always say draft for talent. The Raptors felt like they drafted the best player available when they took Colin Murray-Boyles. So I'll support that. I'll support that mindset. I don't think the discontent for not having a backup center should be fixated on the draft. Not having like a backup rim protector. Like, sure, like there was one available to get in the draft, but the Raptors, like I said, got the best player available in their opinion. Your discontent for not having a backup rim protector should just be on the front office for not addressing that at all. Not addressing that in the offseason. That's the problem. It's not like the draft was the only time the Raptors could have done. The Raptors went the entire offseason, an entire new offseason without addressing that need, and it is absolutely biting them in the ass right now. And trading Ochai Agbaji for Nick Richards would not solve that. Nick Richards is not very good. Does it give you size? Sure, but I don't think that solves that. Infamous says Bobby clearly stated he's happy with Darko and he's done everything we asked him to do. He's doing what management wants. Just say you don't like him and leave it there. I don't like Darko as a head coach. I think he's a bad coach. What do you think I'm hiding here? What management's gonna come out at media day and say we're not happy with the coach? He better start winning games. No, that's not gonna happen. They're gonna publicly back the head coach and hope he turns it around. There you go. Whatever if management's if management is happy with him, sure, that's fine. I'm not. I'm very unhappy with him, and I don't understand how you can be with you can feel satisfied with the product that's been on display for the last 2 and a bit seasons now. So I said my piece. I don't think he's a very good coach, and I hope he proves me wrong, but it's been a long time where he hasn't. Glad we got CMB when we did. We had Ulrich, so I see why. I mean, sure, Ulrich Shamshe was on the team, but also Ulrich Shamshe was never going to be a rotation guy this season. That was still firmly going to be a project for the team. The one that, the one draft pick that really feels like got away from me is Adem Bona. Adem Bona's looked really good for the Sixers to start this season. That was one that really got away to me a couple drafts ago. They took Jonathan Mobo 31st overall. I was really excited going into that second round because I thought Adem Bona would be an excellent selection for the Raptors. People talk about Kyle Filipowski. I was never a fan of Kyle Filipowski, but Adem Bona was one that I look back on like, man, we could have had that instead of Jonathan Mobo. That one definitely stings a little bit more for me. I got 4 games in for Murray Boyles, and he's only even played in 2. I agree. It was easier to address the center spot at the draft and just take Colin Malawatch, but they like Colin Murray Boyles. They took the best player available in their opinion. They should have found another way to address the backup center spot if they weren't going to address it at the draft. That's where I'm more upset, for sure. If the management gets the sense this team is a title contender, they will get a more experienced coach. Sure, they're definitely not there yet, but also in order to become a title contender, you need to build, you need to get to that point, and I don't see that happening under the current regime, under the current coaching staff. I just don't see them getting there at all, and I am terrified of even the thought of this team even becoming a contender. This being the coaching staff that has to get it to the pinnacle. I don't really see that. I don't really see that at all, personally. If you're rebuilding, you need to show progress, and they haven't. So, you can't just rebuild. You can't rebuild and stay the same. When you're developmental coach, supposedly, there needs to be progress. Last season, I don't really see how any progress was made. Barnes got worse, quickly got worse. You didn't solve the roster issues in terms of like a half-court offense, floor spacing, rim protection, defense. I just there needs to be light at the end of the tunnel that I can look forward to. I don't see it, sadly, at the moment. All right. MOK says we should have addressed the backup center spot with their second-round pick last year. Easy to say that in hindsight now. They must have really liked Mobo. I don't subscribe to the theory they drafted him because he was Scotty Barnes' friend. I think that's not true. They liked what they saw in Mobo. They thought they could develop him. He's still young and can still develop. Adem Bona was there. That's the one I wanted. It's not just a draft. They had all summer and all of last summer and all of the summer before to get rim protection, and they didn't. Be it in the draft or be it somewhere else. They draft best player available from their perspective. Fine. But if you're not going to use the draft to sort out the positional needs, you have to do it somewhere else, and they haven't done that. Right? All right. Well, anyways, guys, 6:02. We're a little bit past time today. Sorry for the connection issues a little bit earlier on. That is going to wrap up today's Raptors Happy Hour. We're back in 15 minutes for the watch party as the Toronto Raptors take on the Houston Rockets. Hopefully we start moving in the right direction. I don't need, it's a tough game. I don't care if they lose, but let's put together a better performance, a better start, and start to showcase some progress being made in the right direction to kind of get out of this funk that they're in to start the season and hopefully put together a good season. If you guys do enjoy, smash that like button. Make sure you guys support the channel. Help drive us up in the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, to Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm live for as many Raptors games as I can be. Live tonight. Not going to be live Friday because I'm going to be live for the Happy Hour Friday, but not the Raptors game because the Blue Jays have a very important Game 6 that I want to watch. Sorry. But, yeah, a lot of fun tonight other than the connection issues. I'll see you guys very soon. We got the watch party coming. See you there. Link is at the top.